Hey guys, welcome to Hyphens Classics. So I want to do a bit of a wrap up on the R56 Mini One and also go through a couple of other things that we're doing at the moment so I can catch it all up in my head as to what I've shared with you. So the R56 or the Mini One, those terms I still struggle with the way that they use those. Anyway, it's a Mini One 2008, let's just use that. So it came in to me and the owner told me that it had an issue. They'd been out driving, had an issue, the card sort of stalled and failed. Had RAC come out and have a look at it, and the RAC guy listened to the engine and went, wow, you got the death rattle. So he went around looking for someone to do that work for him and ended up coming to me. So as you've seen, we've done the timing chain and we had a look at it, and we had a number of sort of codes that still occurred afterwards. And I'll list some of the codes that we had up here, or up here over one of my shoulders anyway. So the time chain itself, in hindsight, you know, looking back, has absolutely gone swimmingly fine. Nothing wrong with that. But then it wasn't until we had these issues afterwards I started talking to the client saying, well, what actually happened with the car? And it turned out that the car was having a rough idle and it would stall. And had a number of issues like that. So looking at the codes, one of the codes was no voltage on the Vanos or VVT motor. So this is the motor, again, picture up here, the motor in question. Now it also had some issues talking about the advance and retard on bank 1, but I figured, well, the motor itself starts all that action off, and then you've got the two oil solenoids that move the Vanos systems on the end of the cams. So we did a couple of things. We tried swapping around the relay. I thought about the fuse. We did look at the fuse, check that as well, for the relay for the VVT motor. Swapped some relays because it's a very similar relay to the windscreen wipers, so we swapped that round, see if that would help. Didn't help, so we ordered another one and put that in. Unfortunately, of course, that was valve timing cover off again, because you have to hold down the shaft that the motor's driving so that you can actually slide it out and then get it back in again. So anyway, got that. Also, if you're having to do that, just remember there's a thin metal gasket that needs to go in there, so we've got to be a little bit careful with that. I think the one I ordered didn't have one, so I had to be very careful with the old one to make sure I didn't destroy that and putting it back in. Everything seems okay. So after we changed the motor, what I also did is I thought, well, let's pull these solenoids out and have a look at them, and sure enough, they had some dirt in them. Again, image here. They had some dirt, not huge amounts, but hey, you know, we don't want clogging up. So those were clean, put back in. Car was taken for drive, seemed okay, had a problem. As soon as it came back and it was sitting down for a while, seemed to have issues again. So it was left to cool down because it was quite warm, and we checked the codes, and now it's talking about the O2 sensors, you know, pre-post cat sensors. So we're looking at that thinking, okay, it was too hot to touch at the time. So I had a quick look underneath, had a look at the one behind, looked alright. Looking at the one on top, again, couldn't really touch it because the engine was hot. So I wait for it to cool down. And the owner himself actually, because this was quite late at night, he took it back, and the next morning he had a look at it and noted that the sensor was loose. So I don't have the right tools, so I sent them down to A&T Motors, my local. They tightened it up for him. They also noted that the cables were quite twisted and possibly there was some damage there. So they tightened it up. He took it for another ride. Seemed fine. And I think then a little bit later, again, there was a problem. So the view is they swapped out the O2 sensor. This is the pre-cat sensor, swapped it out, straightened up the wires, tidied them up, kept them away from the heat shield, and now that was just nearly a week and a half ago. So car seems to be running now, which is great. So the original fault possibly being a combination of the VVT motor and the O2 sensor was causing a number of interesting issues and weird issues, but hey, the car's working now, and that's a positive. So that wraps up where we're at with the Mini One. Now, where we're at with a number of other cars, obviously you're up to date with most of what's happening with the Mini here. We have in the back end, we're sort of coming together slowly. I've got the calipers are in at the powder coater at the moment, literally. I think he was doing them yesterday, so I'm hoping this week to pick those up, and then we'll be able to get back onto this car and finish, or at least finishing the rear end. What we will be doing, what I will be doing is I'm not going to completely put this car back together at the back. What we'll do is we'll finish off the brake lines, pin up everything to allow it to work and to move, so we can get the wheels on. And then what we do is also want to finish up the front as well. And then once that's all done, before we put all the bodywork back on, I'm going to run it down to A&T Motors and get them to do a wheel alignment. And then once that's done, it'll come back, we'll put the heat shields on, get the exhaust back in, and go from there. And then things like the bodywork will go on as well. One of the things I'm keen to do is also the next project, once we've done the back and the front, will be upgrading some of the stereo system. The head unit I'm not overly concerned at this point in time. It's alright. The main reason I have it is Bluetooth, right? Because I think most of these days we use our phone for most of our transactions and communication and fun and entertainment, so I don't need anything massive in the front. I've seen some interesting and nice ideas about people putting, you know, tablets into the car, which seems like quite a cool idea as well. We'll see how that goes, but first of all, it's a bit like, you know, suspension and brakes, right? The reason this is being done here, well, apart from the fact it had to be done, we'll do, when I'm close to the end, we'll do a whole bunch of before and after shots so you can see the differences and the amount of corrosion that goes on. So that had to be done. But, you know, for me personally, I want to know that this car can ride, you know, stop, you know, go around corners and all that sort of good stuff before we do any projects on the engine bay. So that would be that. The rear seats are just over here. I'm not sure whether I will leave them out or not. I kind of have this problem at the moment of storage space. I kind of like the concept of having the back empty, because never really use the back seats. So it'd be nice to be able to do that, but again, we'll see. It'll come down to how much storage space, and do I want to sell the interior of the car and do something completely different with it, or, you know, or not. Anyway, if you've got a thought and comment on what you would do, put it in the comments below. I know there's been suggestions of, you know, half cage in here, putting in some sports seats and things like that. But again, we'll see. I've spent a lot of money on this car so far, and I would like to get out and drive it and have a bit of fun in it, and then we'll go from there. So the other things, the Land Rover, hopefully we're going to spend a bit of time on that today. So will be some videos coming up of that shortly. We're going to look at a number of the issues that are with the car. So I've had some great feedback from a lot of you on brake issues and what, you know, should and shouldn't be. So we're going to jump into that in just a minute, and we'll get all that filmed up and we'll talk about that. The other thing is there's a fairly serious oil leak in the transfer case, so we've got to get underneath and have a look, start, you know, pulling off the transmission brake and have a look and see why that's occurred. And fingers crossed we haven't damaged anything in the process of that oil pouring out of there. Okay, so thanks very much again for watching, guys. Hope you appreciate it. This is, maybe I should have done this live actually, but this is a one-take wonder. But again, appreciate your time. I hope everyone is safe and well. I know, I'm sure with all this lovely weather, we're all kind of looking forward to getting outside and doing a few more things. So again, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and we'll see you in the next episode. Cheers for now.